All right, the recording is in progress for us. Tonight's video, everybody, we are going to be talking essentially the quantum realm, terahertz waves, atomic water, and microtubules. And these couple of things, quantum states, we're going to be covering a lot of information. Yeah, the ceiling fan, I'm sorry, I would love to turn it off, but it's all right. We're going to get over to the screen share so you won't really see it. So tonight, one of the first things that I want to put before us is called, this isn't so important to where we're going, and it's a fancy term, but I do want to put this out there to show everybody that this is something that we can start having a conversation this direction. It's called orchestrated objective reduction theory. And orchestrated objective reduction theory is a theory which postulates that consciousness originates at a quantum level inside neurons, rather than the conventional view that it is the product of connections between neurons. What they're saying is, rather than consciousness being in our nerves and our brain, like the connection between them is what is creating our reality and the entire body, the connection of nerves that moves through all of it. They're saying consciousness is originating instead inside of there. And the mechanism is held to be a quantum process called objective reduction that's orchestrated by cellular structures called microtubules. These microtubules, you're going to hear lots about this tonight. So it's proposed that the theory may answer the hard problem of consciousness that provides a mechanism for free will. The hypothesis was first put forward in the early 1990s by a Nobel laureate for physics, Roger Penrose, and an anesthesiologist and psychologist, Stuart Hameroff. The hypothesis combines approaches from molecular biology, neuroscience, pharmacology, philosophy, quantum information theory, and quantum gravity. So while mainstream theories assert that consciousness originates as the complexity of the computations performed by cerebral neurons increases, basically what they're saying, they're saying consciousness is a derivative of the complexity of the neurons in the brain. That's what's defining our consciousness. Orchestrated objective reduction theory posts that consciousness is based on non-computable quantum processing performed by qubits formed collectively on cellular microtubules, a process significantly amplified by the neurons. So what it's saying is the consciousness is actually starting at the quantum level, coming up to the microtubules, and then being expressed through the neurological system into the brain. So that consciousness itself is not originating in the brain, but at this subatomic and quantum level that's being funneled from this other reality down from the quantum realm. And these microtubules are acting like an antenna. Kind of like if you were to have a TV antenna on top of your house that allows you to tune into different radio stations. What these microtubules are doing is literally tuning into the reality show called You, is what's going on. And so these qubits are based on oscillating dipoles forming superimposed resonant rings and helical pathways through the lattices of the microtubules. It's a fancy way to say it travels through microtubules. These oscillations are either electric due to the charge separation from the London forces, or magnetic due to the electron spin, and possibly due to nuclear spins that can remain isolated for longer periods of times, that occur in gigahertz, megahertz, kilohertz, and also specifically terahertz frequencies. So orchestrated refers to the hypothetical process by which connected proteins, such as the microtubule-associated proteins, influence or orchestrate qubit state reduction by modifying the space-time separation of their superimposed states. That's a mouthful. So what I'd rather do, well, I wanted to let you guys know about this, and you can look this up later, and if you want to read about it, you're more than welcome to, but I have a wonderful video that instead, I would like to play this video for you guys before we get started with the presentation, because I believe this simple video is one of my favorites, but it's really going to give you some insight into where we're going with this. And this one Veritasium, he does a really cool job explaining stuff. If you want to follow a science channel, this guy rocks. But we're going to use Dr. Quantum to explain the double-slit experiment.
So, what they thought in school isn't really the way it is, and that our senses are playing tricks on us. You just gotta wonder, what is this reality that we find ourselves in? Quantum physics says it's all just waves of information. Do I believe that? I hope so. And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness. the infamous double-slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So when we throw things, that is matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, it goes through both slits and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. Physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently. So it was aware it was being watched. It was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange netherworld of quantum events. What is matter? Particles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
All right, so this video was important for us to be able to explain where we're moving with this. So as we're talking about the quantum realm, we're basically going to be talking about your reality. We have these infinite waves of possibility around us in the quantum realm that make up the reality around us. And I wanted you to pay attention. Remember when the observer was watching the electrons and suddenly it only went through 2 slits instead of all the bands that went out there. What this is where we're going with this is you have essentially you have what I like to call a soul stream. You have a stream, kind of like that wave of those electrons being shot through the double slit coming from your reality, or from the infinite waves of possibility being funneled into your actual reality itself. So your microtubules are the centers. They're basically like that little eyeball that watched the electron and saw what it was doing. That's the observer. So all of these little microtubules are kind of like the observers, and you've got trillions of little observers in your body that are watching this stream of your reality come through and collapsing it into your waking physical reality. And so that's why watching this was important when we talk about the quantum realm versus the physical realm instead, that you as yourself, you have infinite possibilities of who you could be, what you could become, where you could go do, what you could do with yourself, what you could learn. And we have these microtubules responding to it as little silent observers that are pulling that soul stream in and acting like a TV antenna, tuning you into the reality show called you. It's fascinating. That's what these beautiful little things are doing. And so what we're talking about as we continue to move on is that the centers of consciousness, they're not found in here. They're coming through these little microtubules that are coming through. And we get into atomic water, when we get into quantum tunneling and the amplification of the signal into you as well. This is when it's going to start to get even more fun. So let's continue on now that we've kind of started with that. I know you guys are already going to have a lot to think about, but get ready for whole lot more. So let's come on over here. And today we're going to be talking about unraveling consciousness. And we've been talking about the role of terahertz waves in microtubule function and atomic water generation. So consciousness has always been fascinating and elusive concept for science and philosophers alike throughout the ages. It forms the very core of our existence, yet its mechanistic underpinnings remain shrouded in mystery. Just like the double slit experiment, our consciousness remains a mystery of where is it, where do we find it, and how does it work? So this article and this presentation is going to dive into the intriguing aspects of neuroscience that suggests a potential basis for consciousness, the microtubule, a crucial component of your cell cytoskeleton. And more importantly, it's going to be exploring the role of terahertz waves in generating atomic waters within these microtubules, and thereby exponentially facilitating the conduction of consciousness. Because just because we have this little processor here, we have to have a way for it to plug into consciousness, amplify it, and run that current of consciousness, your soul stream through it. And that's where this atomic water comes in with its capacity to enhance quantum funneling, that electrons can literally magically move through the walls of this and be able to funnel your reality from these infinite possibilities through all these little quantum processors you have in your body called microtubules. So these microtubules, these are the superconductors of consciousness. And the mystery of consciousness, it can find its solution in the nanoscale realm of our brain's neurons, because in our brain, we have exceedingly high levels of microtubules. We've got them across the entire body, because we don't just process reality in our brain. Our entire body is processing everything at the same time, and the brain is sort of observing all these. So this presentation explores that microtubules, these tiny tubular structures in our brain cells and all across our bodies, are utilizing terahertz waves, which is a frequency of light, and it plays an essential role in creating consciousness. And this revolutionary paradigm sheds light that microtubules are the foundation for processing consciousness, and terahertz waves facilitate through the generation of atomic water. These are the mediums for consciousness channeling within the microtubules. So you take a look at somebody We can make a couple of examples. Take somebody who just is able to remember these vast quantities of information. We're saying, well, this person must be smart. They must have an extraordinary brain. And we could measure the brain and we can look at it and we can put it through, functional MRIs and EEGs and all these fun little measurement techniques. But the problem is we're putting the carriage before the horse because the brain is secondary to this. Where this person's consciousness and where the processing is originally originating at, or the origin of this consciousness processing isn't in the brain. It's feeding it from the microtubules to the brain with this atomic water that's structured by terahertz waves and amplifying and super shuttling as a superconductor of our consciousness, these terahertz waves shooting them through the body. So we have to move to consciousness beyond the brain. And terahertz wave quantum, and we're talking about terahertz wave quantum computing in biological systems. So this quantum underground is an entirely new paradigm in neuroscience. So as it says, traditionally, the brain's been viewed as a complex computer network with all these little neurons acting as basic algorithmic units, meaning the brain is the only thing that's actually processing this. However, this perspective fails to account for several critical aspects of cognition and consciousness. So this new paradigm is emerging that the information processing extends to a deeper, faster level within the neurons, within the body, everywhere. And it's broadcast without the actual physical wires of our neurons. It's actually sent across the body as a signal that we're an entire waveform function. And these microtubules are collapsing that waveform function into the reality known as you, and they play a pivotal role as a center of processing consciousness. So the Microtubule Information Processing Center, this microtubule, through their unique structure and composition, are proposed to act as Boolean switching matrices. Each little tubulin in a microtubule, so that the microtubule is made up of these teeny little building blocks. And the thing is, these building blocks, when we stack them all together and wrap them into this beautiful little tube we call a microtubule, hence the name, it's literally a little tube. The thing is, the capacity for this microtubule to conduct electricity through it is exponentially higher than a single one of these little tubulin molecules on its own. So the little protein building blocks that make up the microtubule don't have near the conductive capacity that them, once they're assembled, are able to. So this tubulin-based information processing system is instrumental in orchestrating these quantum vibrations. When we saw Dr. Quantum and these waves of probability coming in, these little tubulins and microtubules are processing all of these waves coming in, acting as the observer and collapsing all of this information into a stream that you then pick up and then moves to our brain. So we have pre-processors to our brain, which was always thought to be the central processing. So we have the role of microtubules in memory storage. We're defining the infinite. Beyond their proposed role in consciousness, microtubules are also speculated to be involved in memory storage. And here's where I kind of want to have somebody take a look at this. I want to take a look beyond the traditional view of we have one life, that's it, and once it's done, it's over. I'm not telling anybody what to think, but I would pose the thought experiment that you do, which you feel that people could say past lives, future lives, parallel lives, even alternate realities that you all live in, that these microtubules might be able to tune into all of that. And here's my postulation for us to take a look at. Take a look at somebody who, like a 4-year-old. I got my grand piano back here and I've worked hard to learn how to play it and everything, but I got 4-year-olds that make me look like an idiot on the piano. They're able to somehow, as 4, 5, 6-year-olds, they're playing Mozart, and they've barely been playing in their life. How is this possible? And how is it that these people have this capacity, or these people that have all of these gifts that you look at and you just go, how does this person able to do all of these things so well? Or even just that one thing so well when they're a 6-year-old? How is this possible? The possibility comes in to these microtubules of being involved in memory storage that move across all of space and time. That you very well, you maybe don't remember it consciously, but there might be in part of your soul stream encoded a memory from another lifetime where you already had done all of this, where you were that 4-year-old, that 6-year-old was very good at playing piano or another instrument in a different lifetime, and they're actually funneling that memory to this lifetime instead through these microtubules. So this tubulin code is a memory medium within the microtubules that could store vast amounts of information and enabling exceptionally complex cognitive functions. So where we're going with this, with these microtubules of saying, well, the brain is beautiful and it's very unique. The capacity for microtubules to not only process information, but store it is exponentially greater than the brain's itself. So this solves a mystery on memory storage, and it proposes that memory could be stored in this microtubule lattices within the neurons. And the tubulin proteins that are considered to encode the information from synaptic and other top-down inputs are actually offering enormous capacity for memory storage. And this memory storage is super stable and it can last for lifetimes and is likely linked to consciousness. So this tubulin code refers to the post-translational modifications and genetic variability of tubulins within the microtubules. This code could potentially serve as a mechanism for memory storage, with each tubulin being capable of encoding one of a vast number of possible states. You remember when that electron went through the splits, that it went through both, it went through neither, it went through one, and it went through the other. This is a superposition state, and these microtubules within the body and these tubulins are able to process on, off, both, or neither, meaning both of them, neither of them, one of them, the slits, or the other slit. So this is when we get into this quantum processing. And so there's quantum computers out there that are able to work on this level of computation, that they work with qubits and superpositions, versus a standard computer like I'm using has two states in its processor, on or off. And that's on or off is all it can use to process. When we move to the quantum biological system that you have that's able to process superpositions, it can process on, off, both, or neither, all at once. And that's what these microtubules and these tubulins are doing. So these are the quantum channels in neurons, that these tiny cylindrical structures found abundantly in our brain's neurons, but they're found everywhere. And they have a unique arrangement in neuronal dendrites and soma, featuring a mixed polarity and complex network organization. So they're believed to facilitate this quantum processing, and with this atomic water inside them, offer a quantum-friendly environment within the neuron, within these microtubules. So the role of terahertz wave in microtubules, terahertz waves is a form of light with a very specific frequency that are proposed to have an exceptionally crucial role within the microtubules. They generate atomic water within the microtubules, and this water is the medium for that consciousness channeling. This atomic water forms a quantum channel that connects the tubulin proteins to the microtubule, enabling them to function as a unified entity. So remember when I talked about each one of those little proteins couldn't do all that much? Now, when they arrange themselves into this microtubule and fill themselves with atomic water, they now all act as like a miniature quantum hive mind, that it can process way beyond what just a single one of them can do, so that the sum is much greater, or the whole is much greater than just the sum of its parts. And so terahertz waves as well we can take a look at this, we're water beings. Almost the entirety of our body is water filled. And there's a reason for that, because water responds incredibly powerfully to terahertz waves. It changes the bonding angle, it structures it into quantum water. And so without, say, an external device like a terahertz, wave device, our body has its own terahertz wave generators inside of it. That's literally, we can be talking like chi and prana, even call it like the Holy Spirit, all these other things moving through us. These terahertz waves are organizing all the water inside of our body, specifically this atomic water found inside of our microtubules, that acts as this quantum bridge between it. And this water acts as the medium for all this consciousness. We've talked about the studies of Dr. Emoto, how water has memory, but it goes way beyond that. Water has the capacity to be this quantum funnel within it, specifically when arranged into this atomic water instead. And so this gives us a critical feature for cognitive binding and the unity of the consciousness experience, because our entire body is processing all of reality all at once through terahertz waves being used as one of the main mediums that this signal is broadcast from the microtubules and from this atomic water. As this atomic water structures, it's putting off a signal in specifically these terahertz waves functions. So when we're harnessing the power of terahertz waves, this is a key to expanding human consciousness. Terahertz waves are often referred to as T waves, and they occupy this fascinating little region of the electromagnetic spectrum between microwaves and infrared. And this is non-ionizing radiation. So when these frequencies can range from 0.1 to 10 terahertz, these waves possess a super unique set of characteristics that have a potential to revolutionize various fields of science and technology. And here's we delve into the world of terahertz wave and explore their role in expanding human consciousness. We have to understand consciousness and its potential. So consciousness is a subject that's baffled everybody, and it refers to the state of being aware and perceiving one's surroundings. It encompasses our thoughts, our emotions, our experiences, past, present, and future, making it a fundamental aspect of human experience. And while the nature of consciousness remains, a little elusive, researchers have made significant strides in understanding its potential and its expression in terahertz waves. And so one of the most intriguing aspects about terahertz waves is their ability to interact with biological systems. Studies have shown that these waves can penetrate organic matter inside the human body without opening or without causing any harm. And these characteristics open up an entire realm of possibilities for utilizing terahertz waves for harnessing and expanding human consciousness. So, okay, we already talked about this of memory storage. I'm sorry, I think I have an extra duplicated slide there. So, let's see, quantum channel. We already kind of talked about this stuff. So, but these microtubules, they determine what's exceptionally interesting is we can take single-celled organisms that have no neurons. They don't have a brain, but yet they are able to basically, they can go through complex functional steps, systems, and thoughts as if they had a brain. They can perform functions. Not only does their cell, that single cell, actually think itself and function, but it performs external actions without the use and without possessing an actual brain. So because this terahertz field, when applied to water, leads to this quantum coherence of interacting water clusters and confined to the microtubules, but it also moves inside all the cells. If we talk about the force phase of water, Dr. Polak, and the EZ or exclusion zone water, that is another type of water that lines all the insides of your cells. And so the big thing is, when we're kind of talking about this here, the brain is approximately 90% water. And so these quantum coherent systems of water clusters that are quantized terahertz electromagnetic field combined within the hollow cores of the brain and microtubules are very relevant to conscious thought and processing. So terahertz waves and cognitive function. The misfolding of proteins, making them dysfunctional and disease-causing, is very likely associated with the failure of water molecules to congregate in clusters that properly interact with the protein. So the development of drugs and supplements to treat such diseases should therefore be focused on the restoration of water clustering at its core and the protein interfaces. So kind of what we're saying, when we take a look at, say, Alzheimer's or these prions or even some of these Lyme disease work along this way, what ends up happening is when we start getting misclustered water, basically water that doesn't cluster or turn into this atomic water appropriately, now affects protein folding. So we're not just talking in the brain either, because protein folding also occurs where? Every single cell in the body and your DNA itself is reliant upon this proper protein folding. So as you start to decrease a person's frequency, if you will, their vibration starts getting lower. What starts happening, there's less and less quantum water created. Water starts clustering in dysfunctional and disease-causing ways that proteins across the entire body can't fold appropriately because the water hasn't clustered appropriately to allow the proteins to bend appropriately. So this property is key in optimizing delivery of drugs. I don't really care about delivering drugs, but supplements and neurocognitive enhancement and genetic enhancement, epigenetic modification enhancement. So these terahertz vibrations of water clusters are going to be clathrating the supplement and provide the resonance needed to restore the interfacial water restructuring for essential protein folding. Clathrating basically is another way to say clathrin-mediated endocytosis. That's a very long term. You're going to hear me say this many different times. Clathrin-mediated endocytosis is the process in which the cells will build a clathrin cage around a molecule it wants to bring into the cell. So if you've got, say, a nutrient, or you've got a vitamin, or you've got a sugar, or anything, or a supplement, anything that the cell wants to take in, sometimes it has to clathrinate it or go through clathrin-mediated endocytosis to build this clathrin cage around it, to import it into the cell and then bring it to where it needs to go in the cell. Terahertz waves rapidly induce clathrin-mediated endocytosis, meaning nutrient bioavailability can go up exponentially, possibly 60 times or more and beyond by applying these terahertz waves. And the thing is, the body had figured this out before we did. God did this first. He made this terahertz wave operate within the body because when we have a higher level of frequency and vibration, we have a much greater propensity for nutrient absorption. So you take somebody who's in a low vibration, low energetic state, they're toxic. They don't bring nutrients and they've got no nutrient absorption. This is a huge problem. So we can take anybody, start applying terahertz waves, and we're going to start structuring this atomic water, the proper molecule clusters. We're going to enhance cell-to-cell communication. We're going to increase coherence across the entire body for whole body communication, but we're also going to increase nutrient bioavailability. So the formation of hydrogen bonds between a drug molecule or a supplement and a water molecule will polarize the latter, resulting in further water clusters that play a key role in drug receptor sites and nutrient receptor sites on the body. The drug molecules and the supplement molecules will tend to cause water restructuring of these cage-like structures, which then implies that the supplement molecule will have a water signature attached to it. A water signature attached to it. And because of these terahertz waves optimizing these clusters of water, your supplements in your body now have a water signature to them that allows them to be more completely uptaken by the body. Is everybody else having fun with this? This is ridiculous. So terahertz waves, we already talked about this. I think I have a duplicated slides as well. Yep, this one's duplicated. I'm sorry. I was trying to work through it. So this connection between here is memory is the ability to store and retrieve information. It's a cornerstone of human cognition. And these terahertz waves play a pivotal role in memory formation and retrieval. Studies have shown that these waves can modulate neuronal activity, enhancing memory consolidation and recall. So by understanding the relationship between terahertz waves and memory, remember we talked about the water clusters and the protein folding and everything in the brain, but we can unlock completely new avenues for cognitive function and creating a new generation of superconscious individuals with a quantum processing capacity that far exceeds the average individual. You guys seeing where we can go with this and what we can do with this? I don't know if you know what Joey and I talk about in some of this genetic and epigenetic modulation stuff that we've got going on. And I love neurocognitive enhancement, neuroplasticity enhancement. I had massive brain damage from alcoholism and some of the drugs the military put me on and all the vaccines and tons of other stuff. I mean, we'll just put a pin in that, boop. But the capacity now that we have to be able to utilize this is unbelievable. Alex, we're going to get to atomic water. We'll get there. Give us just a little bit. So these terahertz waves in the perception of reality, our reality is shaped by the information our senses to gather from the world around us. And terahertz waves have the potential to influence this perception by interacting with our neuronal circuits. So essentially, too, what we're looking at is that these little microtubules are acting as that observer, collapsing reality within us. And so by using these waves to positively alter brain activity and superpower bodily processes, we can be leading into shifts in perception that rather than saying psychedelics and everything else of that matter that leads to an altered state of perception, what if we just made people super conscious? Instead of saying we need to use psychedelics to gain a new perspective on reality. I'm not against them. I mean, like everything's cool. I mean, do what you got to do. It's totally okay. But what if instead we could influence the perception of reality and make somebody super conscious? And so somebody said, I'm concerned about the impact on natural consciousness. The thing is, terahertz waves, they don't alter your consciousness. They enhance it. We're not forcing anything that wasn't there anyway. These are just the very waves that your entire body, your brain, and your microtubules use to structure this water and funnel your quantum reality to this base conscious level and be able to process it as a whole body unit through the connection of all these microtubules and the atomic water in them that allows them to act as a singular unit. So in quantum mechanics and terahertz waves, the branch of physics that deals with the behavior of particles at the smallest scales, has revealed terahertz waves possess a quantum nature. They can exist in superposition states, simultaneously both being a wave and a particle. So this explores the possibility of using terahertz waves to explore the intricate connections between quantum physics and consciousness. And this allows us to bend our reality by harnessing the quantum nature of terahertz waves that our body has already pre-programmed in by God to be able to use as its base primary frequency band for communication and information processing. So all we're saying is here that we're using this to do what the body is already doing anyway. It already works in the terahertz frequency band. Somebody says, would it provide an opportunity for the cells to pull in other toxins and chemicals to the body? No, because those are never clath rated. And number two, when we start structuring the water appropriately and we start powering the body up to this level, it's going to, by proxy, start to safely expel any of the toxins, heavy metals, or other chemicals, or even just cellular waste that shouldn't be there, because these terahertz waves essentially are just superpowering the cells and the neurons to work the way they were designed to work. So atomic water, we're talking unlocking eternity through the generation of quantum tunneling and consciousness. So, excuse me. So these microtubules, these cylindrical structures located within the cell, play critical roles in the various cellular processes. They're known as a protein known as tubulin. And so these are intricate, high-speed, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. These are intricate, high-speed information processings within the neurons. And the kinetic terahertz absorbed studies of protein folding revealed that solvent dynamics are coupled to secondary structure formation of the protein. The water solvent network is dynamically rearranged in milliseconds before the protein folds to its native state within the following seconds. That is to say, terahertz vibrational waves organize the water molecules surrounding a protein milliseconds before the protein folds. So there's literally these terahertz waves are used to change the structure of the water around the protein milliseconds before that protein starts folding and then changes again right afterwards. So these resonant vibrations of unique energy on the microtubule surface emerge as the atomic water core resonantly integrates all the proteins around us. So we're getting into a whole nother area here of hydrated electrons, which are quantum energy storage. So these pentagonal dodecahedron water clusters, and when somebody had asked what atomic water is, it's water that arranges itself into pentagonal dodecahedronal water clusters, also known as water buckyballs, and they possess unique terahertz frequency vibrations from which charged water buckyballs can act as electron reservoirs for chemical reactions involving electron transfer to or from reacting species. What does that mean? Okay, basically they act as a little mini, better than lithium ion battery. These little water clusters, when they structure this way, this terahertz wave energy is stored, rearranging these water molecules where they can hold all of this electricity to be an electron donor, basically acting like a super antioxidant to be able to donate electrons. And so the heat storage capacity of these water buckyballs approaches that of bulk water as well. So the unique property that their vibrational frequencies extend in the terahertz region of the electromagnetic frequencies. And so these water buckyballs hold extra electrons as a hydrated electron that's super readily available to be able to be used as a super antioxidant or to superpower bodily functions. So pentagonal water clusters have been experimentally identified as the key to hydration and stabilization of biomolecules. Such examples indicate the tendency of water pentagons to form closed geometric structures at these biological interfaces, including DNA, RNA, and amino acids. So these terahertz waves in this water, oh, did I jump one? Yeah, we did. Yeah, these vibrations, Froelich coherence, and it's more importantly to take a look at what this atomic water is the structure of it and the way it arranges itself into pentagonal structures. And so where are we going here? The restructuring, we kind of already talked about these things. We can save it for later. And so let's see. Yeah, these are, we can just save those for later too, because we don't really need these. So this is the biggest way that we can talk about what this is doing for us, because we've got these terahertz waves interacting with water, interacting in the microtubules and the tubulins, creating this atomic water, creating these dodecagonal, pentagonal water structures that act as hydrated electrons, that act as a super antioxidant and electron donor, but that your cells are also using these terahertz waves across the entire body to communicate with each other. And so one of the big things, like when a person's frequency gets low or a vibration, or they get a bunch of toxicity in them, that means these terahertz waves across the body aren't being broadcast. The cells lose their capacity to interact with each other. They lose their ability to communicate. So we all know what happens. Take a human being and put them in isolation. What happens to them? What happens to somebody when they get lonely? It doesn't turn out well when somebody starts getting lonely, and we as a whole can process that information for a period of time. But imagine what happens to a cell when it gets lonely. Its terahertz waves aren't getting across to its other cells around it. It can't communicate with it. What starts to happen to that cell? You already know that answer of what it starts doing. We're not going to say it, but I'm going to tell you about it. So by utilizing these terahertz waves and by enhancing these microtubule functions on this atomic water, we have the potential to create a future of super conscious individuals. We're not talking altered states. We're not talking altering anything about the person. We're saying we're creating somebody who's vibrating and processing at the capacity that they were supposed to from the beginning. We're talking super conscious. We're not just talking conscious. We're not just talking, hey, I can handle myself pretty well today. We're talking about the capacity for human beings to become superhuman processing units, because their entire body is able to sense and collapse the entirety of the quantum realm in its superposition state and process all of it. So the utilization of terahertz waves and microtubule function enhancement and atomic water generation in consciousness represents an exceptionally exciting advancements for the human species. Terahertz waves are incredibly stabilizing to microtubules, and they also promote the construction of them. Why are these two things important? There's a fear gene called STNMN1, and I did a video on it previously. And do you know what fear does? Fear causes destabilization of microtubules, and it also inhibits the assembly of it. So fear as a vibration and as a frequency is basically anti-terahertz. It starts destroying microtubules, where terahertz frequency starts speeding up the assembly of them and the formation of the atomic water in them. So by utilizing these processes, we can open up groundbreaking advancements, not only in our understanding, our understanding of consciousness, but in our capacity as human beings to enhance our cognition, to enhance our health, to enhance our lifespan, to slow our aging, to super absorb different nutrients, to super detox from all the different things that are out there, and the capacity for us to basically plug in unified with God, for lack of a better way to put it. And the thing is, we're not faking anything. We're not forcing anything. Our body was designed to run on this from the very beginning. We're just saying modern problems require modern solutions. When we have these new solutions, when a shovel was invented, we could dig holes better. When a backhoe was invented, you could dig the hole even better. When the car was invented, instead of the horse and buggy, we can now get to A to B better. When an airplane was invented, same sort of thing. If we utilize this technology, and it's going to be very hard for the potential for abuse with it, because our body was designed to operate within this band as it is, and you can't really use it in a destructive frequency. Using terahertz waves doesn't really have the capacity for negative impacts. Yeah, Alex, you're right. This is a freaking game changer for people that have their different, as I was saying before with it, like if we're talking about the OlyLife P90 device, what if we could take somebody, enhance their capacity to plug in and process the entire quantum realm and them as a self, and enhance the communication between every cell across the entire body, skyrocket the ability for their brain to integrate an experience if they're going to a retreat somewhere, or if you want to do whatever it is you want to go do. What if you could integrate that exponentially faster? A terahertz wave device is like plugging your body into 50 rapid cell phone chargers at once, powering it up, structuring this atomic water, giving it all these hydrated electrons to feed every cellular function and every organ function there is, hyper accelerating the rate at which neurons can remyelinate, how quickly they can grow, DNA and RNA upgrades and repair processes. The uptake of every supplement or nutrient that you've got is going to be upclathrinated, hyper shuttling these nutrients into the cells while creating this dodecahedral or pentagonal dodecahedral water cluster that's hydrated, that's able to help push the toxicity out of the body and neutralize the toxic states of that, while superpowering every single organ function, opening all the detox pathways, and hyper shuttling nutrition to the human being. We're on the forefront of advancing human evolution through terahertz waves and PEMFs. And I didn't even get into PEMF yet. I'm only in the terahertz wave side of this. So we could talk about individuals around the world hyper evolving out of the trauma state, out of the stress state, out of the suppressed state, out of the poison state, out of this sub-vibrational frequency, we can create a future of super conscious individuals that we're able to start changing the world on levels that have never been before comprehended. And Joey and I are just getting started with this stuff. This is so much fun. And this device that we're going to be able to utilize, this P90 terahertz PEMF, this is going to revolutionize so many things that we have coming in the future. And not just Joey and I. There's a lot of people around the world doing a lot of work that we can just plug into this. We can hyper evolve people out of these low vibrational states. And I don't want to make empty promises and say we're going to reach enlightenment or anything, but we can put people on such a higher vibration so quickly and so cost affordably that even your average person at home, all you got to do, like if you have a good terahertz wave device like the P90, throw your feet on it for 30 minutes a day. With the PEMF and the terahertz waves, you watch what's going to start happening to your consciousness. You're suddenly not going to be needing nearly as many supplements. With the PEMF and the terahertz, you're going to become much more impervious to the EMF waves that are around you. You're going to have hyper integration of solar flares, cosmic events, because you're becoming super conscious and your entire body is able to act as one gigantic quantum processing unit together with trillions of these little microtubules everywhere, all processing information all at once together. Can you imagine the connectedness that this is going to make for the human race as well? Of how much better you're going to be able to connect in a relationship with your friends, with your family, with all of it. Can you imagine being able to communicate that much better, to be that much more connected, not only with others, but with yourself? And I'm not just talking your trauma self. I'm talking authentic self. I'm talking soul stream self. The genuine expression of God's grand design. That's the level that we're getting to start to talk about here. And this, my friends, is so exciting. So without further ado, this is the end of the presentation. I'm going to run over and we'll take some Q&A. So